In this video, we're going to take a look at what the recent movement in Bitcoin, the recent surge we've seen in prices, what do they mean? And in fact, how does this translate into our Elliott wave picture? Because Elliott wave theory is a very powerful predictive tool. And we're going to take a look at what this means with the recent movement in Bitcoin, how that fits in with our Elliott wave picture. Okay, so what do we see here on the charts? Now, in my previous video, what I said was, okay, so we've had this nice little bounce, this little movement here. All right. And by the way, I should mention that so far, all of this movement, the majority of this bounce higher in Bitcoin prices has been driven by smart money activity, institutional smart money buying. Let me just say this, the dumb money does not usually buy here. Dumb money, as I'm sure you're aware, they wait until prices have gone above the previous highs, when the coast is clear, as it were, and when everyone starts getting very positive and bullish, and when the mainstream media starts talking about higher prices, that's when the dumb money joins in. And by the way, by that time, they've missed out on all the great opportunities, the great value buying opportunities which have existed so far. So that means if you've been following our videos, you've been buying at these levels or close to these low levels, then well done to you, because that means you've also been doing what the smart money have been doing. Now, here's the thing. I will say this. I'm quite surprised. I mean, despite the fact I did mention, I said in my last video that if we get above 10,500, we should see more buying coming through. But I will say this. I was quite surprised to see it so quickly. Having said that, though, let's take a look at what the RSI indicator, the relative strength index, is telling us. The RSI is currently overbought. By the way, I'm using a special setting of RSI, which I find quite useful. The setting is 295.5. And essentially, this tells us when the short-term overbought, oversold regions in the markets are. In other words, when price is short-term overbought, short-term oversold. By the way, overbought does not mean the price cannot go higher. All it means is potentially we could expect a pullback, or indeed the upside here is a little bit limited. Okay, let me just show you. The last time the RSI was oversold, look at that. That was just very close to this low levels that formed here. All right, and when it was last time overbought was actually just above here, when price hit this recent peak that occurred there before falling. So at the moment, prices are on the overbought side, and we're very close to resistance. Resistance is right here, as a matter of fact, as you can see. So we're very close to this level of resistance, this previous high. And it's a matter of waiting and seeing if we can actually break through that resistance or not. Certainly, I think if we can break through it and close above that resistance, which is about the 11,800 level there, then that could potentially show to us something very powerful about the next move in Bitcoin. I think the more likely scenario for Bitcoin, I would not be surprised at the very least to see a pullback down to the 21 EMA, that blue line you see there. All right. So perhaps a pullback before we see any potential move higher. Let's not turn our attention to Elliott wave theory and what that is telling us. What we're seeing here on this chart, I've been saying this for some time now, that this particular move higher, this was a wave 3, and this correction, and indeed this has been a correction, not what mainstream media has been calling it the bear market, not true at all. This is a correction, an ABC correction, which I'll talk to you more about in a few minutes. So that was our wave 4. Let me just get that here, wave 4. Okay. And I believe there's a very strong likelihood, a very strong probability that wave 4 is now complete. Given the strength of this bounce, I think there's a very strong probability, very high probability that wave 4 has now completed here, which means what? Which means now this movement is the beginning of a wave 5. So we're now potentially starting this wave 5 higher, and that wave 5 is going to take us above the highs of wave 3. Okay. Now, if you take a look here on this chart, this is our Elliott wave theory cycle. And by the way, if you're already familiar with Elliott wave theory, just bear with me, because I think it'll be a nice refresher. And those of you who are not familiar with it, let me just quickly explain. Elliott wave theory simply says that markets trend. They usually trend in 5 waves. So this is a trend we've seen in Bitcoins, as we saw when it hit 20,000. That was 5 waves up, and then followed by a correction, which is formed usually of 3 waves, as you can see, A, B, C. So that was our ABC correction, our wave 4. Wave 4. So Elliott wave theory says that once wave 4 is complete, the ABC move is complete, then we should see a new wave higher, which is our wave 5. Notice that these are labeled, these larger waves, the mega waves, if you want to call it, or the major waves, these are labeled in green. Wave 3, wave 4, and that's our larger wave 5. Notice that each large wave, each of these waves, the wave 3 and the wave 5, are also composed of their own 5 waves, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and also on the wave 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if that confuses you, let me just explain this. Think of the Russian dolls. You've probably seen those Russian dolls that when you open one, there's another smaller one inside of it. And then when you open the smaller one, there's another smaller one inside of that. It's a bit like that. Just think of it like this. Each of those waves, in other words, the wave 1, the waves 1, 3, and 5 are each composed of 5 smaller waves, okay? And of course, waves 2 and 4 are composed of 3 minor waves. But what you do need to appreciate is this, that if wave 4 is now complete, if that correction is now indeed complete, which I think it is, that means we should now be ready for a 5-wave move up higher. The question is this, are we now in a wave 1, or are we already starting the wave 3? And if you're wondering, well, why is that important? It's important because wave 3 is really the most powerful part, the most dynamic part of a trend. All right. And that also tells us whether we can position ourselves for the next buying opportunity. So going back to this chart of Bitcoin right now, it's quite unclear at the moment whether this is a wave 1. This is the beginning of a wave 1. In other words, a minor wave 1 and a much larger wave 5. If you just want to call this the much larger wave 5, 4, and the 3, that means we should now be expecting these minor, smaller waves, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, towards that in the direction of that wave 5 move. Okay, that means something along the lines of, let me just get my arrow. If this is wave 1, that's wave 1, followed by a wave 2 correction. Wave 2 correction could come here, maybe a bit lower. Either way, then we should start a wave 3, then a wave 4, and then a wave 5 higher. Okay, so 5 wave moves in the direction of our larger wave 5. Dumb money right now are too scared. You know why dumb money is so scared? Because they're reading all the articles online. For example, Bank of England governor just said that Bitcoin is a failed currency. Okay, so there's a lot of negativity out there. All right. So for example, here's another one for you. Bitcoin crash. Retail investors to bear the brunt if cryptocurrencies suddenly collapse. Again, that's 2 negative articles. There's a lot of negative articles. So far, the only positive article I've seen so far has been this one from CNBC. Bitcoin broke through 11,000. But remember, the confidence of dumb money. Again, most people out there, their confidence has been shattered. They're probably now calling for lower and lower prices. And that's what happens. Whenever there's a huge drop in prices, like a 70% drop, dumb money gets so scared and they get so shaken out that they usually call for lower and lower prices. Smart money does the opposite. Smart money likes bad news. You, as a professional investor and smart money who've been following our videos, know that we use fear as an opportunity. Okay, so panic, fear, bad news, which drives prices down, for example, to these levels we bought. This is exactly the kind of situation we want, to be able to use it as a bargain, as an opportunity to start buying and, again, getting those nice discounts.